Hey, it's Tuxedo Mark. It's 10, 50, just turned 10:16 p.m. on Thursday, February 4th, 2021. And I just thought I would do like a general review of the TV series TaleSpin since I just finished watching it today. I've spent a few months on it, did a huge binge for the last few episodes today. I'm watching on Disney Plus, which doesn't have two of the episodes due to being controversial, so I have to get them from YouTube. Um, but anyway, yeah. I watched this series back in the day on the Disney afternoon. Uh, ran from 90 to 91. Watched it after school. I remember liking it. Apparently, it borrows some characters, like only about three characters from the Jungle Book, which is a 1960s Disney film. It borrows Baloo, Louie, and Shere Khan, and makes up the rest of the characters. It's not set in the world of the Jungle Book. They're basically just anthropomorphic animals living in an anthropomorphic animal world. There are no humans, except for like brief examples in two episodes, which in Flight of the Snow Duck, when someone tells the story of the snow duck, it might have been Molly, I'm not sure. Um, the girl in the story is a human girl. And I had to stop and rewind. I'm like, wait a minute, there's a human girl. This is like the only human that we've seen in the series that she's like a fairy tale character. And then later on, in one of the episodes near the end, Baloo has a lamp where like the base of the lamp is like it's a hula girl in a grass skirt. But those are only two examples of humans in the series. Everyone else is animals. And yet they barely call attention to the fact they're animals. I mean, sometimes they do, kind of, but most of the time they might as well just be humans. And in fact, there are animals on the series that are treated as animals. They don't talk, they just behave like normal animals. So I really don't get it. I mean, there are regular cats and dogs, but there are also human cats and dogs. And, there's Shere Khan, who's a tiger, which is basically a cat. So there's no clear dividing line over what's a person and what's an animal, since they're all animals. But I don't know. Anyway, so the basic plot, not really a plot, but the setup of the series is Baloo, the bear, is a cargo pilot. He has his own like air cargo service, and he's got his own plane called Sea Duck. He's bad at running his business, and he's got a bunch of past due bills. He's like in debt, I guess. And meanwhile, there's this. He lives in a town or a city called Cape Suzette. It's never really told where it is, and I'll get to that in a moment. But apparently, it's based on San Francisco, and the time setting apparently is vaguely. In one of the last episodes, they clearly don't know what television is. Like, it hasn't been invented yet, even though I believe a prototype of a TV was shown in the World's Fair in the 1920s. But yeah, whatever. They sorry if you hear the neighbors, they yell a lot. They've got their issues. Anyway, so they mentioned the Great War at least once toward the end of near the very end of the series, and maybe more throughout the series as well. Not World War One, it's just the Great War, which means it's before World War Two. And it's like they have a version of Hollywood called Starrywood that they go to in one episode, and it's very much like the Golden Age. And anyway, there's like they mention a version of someone that's obviously meant to be Humphrey Bogart named Humphrey Hogart. So, Anyway, but one of the characters, an orphan kid that Blue takes in named Kid Cloudkicker, wears a backwards cap, which seems kind of like 80s or 90s, but whatever. Um, anyway, Cape Suzette is the object of desire from to be attacked by this group of air pirates. Yeah, it's basically pirates flying airplanes. So they have a giant command ship called the Iron Vulture, and they're led by their captain, basically like a fox or hyena or no, maybe a wolf. Like he's got teeth like a wolf. I don't know what he is. Named Don Carnage. He's got an accent. He's like I don't know what type of nationality he's supposed to be. He's like a mix of probably like Spanish and French and maybe Italian. I don't know. And he's the weirdest guy. He says the weirdest things. This is Don Carnage speaking to you with my voice, and he says like these obviously wrong things. Like he's got this weird grammar, like this weird way of speaking. You have to see some clips of him for yourself. I can't do it justice. But anyway, his ragtag group of pirates are a bunch of idiots. He's not that much better. But yeah, they want to get into Cape Suzette and pillage and plunder and blah, blah, blah. But they're kept at bay by the cliff cannons. Yeah, Cape Suzette is surrounded by a giant cliff, and there's a small gap through it. But there are guards with they're basically manning the cannons. They're mounted on the cliffs. That the cannons shoot at the air pirates to determine from entering the city. So it's a nice setup. That's pretty clever. Um, At first, we don't know if Cape Suzette is like just a city or if it's an entire nation unto itself. But in a later episode toward the end of the series, I mean, we see Kid at school twice, I think, and in the second time, we see an American flag outside the school, and also we see a map, an atlas of the world, and it matches our world. So the continents of the geographical layout are the same, but we're just not clear if this is supposed to be the United States. They never say so. I mean, Kim mentioned something one episode like, "What you want to run for president someday?" So they have a president, I guess, but it's never made clear that it's the United States. But apparently, Cape Suzette is modeled on San Francisco. Anyway, Louis, the ape, or whatever he is, he wears like the Hawaiian thing. He's got a Hawaiian shirt on and a hat, and so he lives on an island, and just outside Cape Suzette, he runs a bar called Louis. Blue hangs out there often, and Kid used to hang with the air pirates because he's an orphan, but he escapes. He's tired of them or whatever, and he meets up with Blue and Louis, and eventually Blue just takes him in. Anyway, when they get back to Blue's place, apparently he hadn't been to the bank to make a payment or whatever. So his business and his plane, the Sea Duck, were basically sold off to this young like a business. She identifies herself as a business major. And later on in the series, we learn she has an MBA. Her name's Rebecca Cunningham. She's a bear. She's got a young daughter named Molly, um, who, by the way, is in relatively few episodes. Large stretches of episodes go by without us seeing Molly, even though Rebecca herself is in almost every episode. So where's Molly this whole time? Does Rebecca spend a lot on babysitters, or does she just leave Molly at their apartment um, to just fend for herself? I don't understand. They never address that. But Rebecca is shown to be an inattentive parent at times. In fact, in two episodes, one near the beginning of the series and one near the very end, it's shown Molly can just sneak off on her own. Rebecca really doesn't seem to care where her daughter is. She's not a very good parent. We never learn, we never hear anything about the dad, though. So apparently, Rebecca's a single mom, or maybe a widow, or I don't know. Um, let's see. So Rebecca buys Blue's air cargo service or whatever it's called and renames it Hire for Hire. Clever title. Um, she owns the Sea Duck, and I guess the main plot, I can't say plot, the series has no overarching plot except, or overarching plot, or however you say it, except Rebecca wants to succeed in her business. Sometimes she tries to come up with some get rich quick schemes to raise cash. Other times she comes up with legitimate good ideas that just are dropped for whatever reason. Blue tries to go off in search of treasure sometimes, or do some get rich quick schemes, or do side jobs to earn extra cash because he wants to buy the Sea Duck back from Rebecca. She says it'll cost him like $5,000 or $10,000 or something. I don't know. But yeah, so which seems high for an old plane. Which, by the way, I think it got blown up near the end of the pilot episode, and she had it put back together even after he'd gotten it back. He'd gotten the title, the deed back from her, just because she gave it to someone, or someone took it from her, and he took it from that person. So just because he's physically holding on to it doesn't mean he owns the plane, but I guess they treated it that way. But since she had put back together, she owns it again. In one episode, actually, he saves Shere Khan's life. Shere Khan, by the way, is reimagined as like a shady businessman, maybe kind of sort of, except he's really not an enemy. You don't want to get on his bad side, but he's come to their rescue. They've come to his rescue. He's okay. He's just got this kind of an air of danger around him, but he's been known to smile, and he's all right. Um, anyway, and he's like sophisticated. He talks in this deep, sophisticated voice, Mister. You know. But anyway, um, so let's see. So in one episode, he saves Shere Khan's life. Shere Khan agrees to give him whatever he wants. Baloo comes up with this whole list of things, and he gets the Sea Duck back, and he gets a bunch of stuff. But at the end of the episode, it's too much. And he's like, put everything back the way it was, which he does. Baloo even hands the deed to Sea Duck back to Rebecca, and but then later on in the series, he still wants to buy it back from her. It's like he could have just kept the Sea Duck, but I guess when he said put everything back the way it was, and Shere Khan does, I guess that means he put the Sea Duck back in Rebecca's name. And Baloo didn't think to say, "Hey, I like to hold on to a plane, please," but whatever. Baloo was in a desperate situation, and he still wants to buy the plane back. He never does. I mean, the series doesn't have a proper finale. It's got like a four-part opener and two-part episodes, but there's no real continuity. In one episode, it's made a big deal that Baloo and Rebecca finally become friends. This doesn't really seem to have any bearing on anything. They still bicker, they still fight. She's still his boss. Um, yeah, so I mean, they become friends, which that episode could fall anywhere in the series, seriously. um, Supposedly there's like a romantic undercurrent there, and in one of the episodes, like toward the middle of the series, after Blue saves the city after he put it in danger from invaders because he let them do it, because he wanted a parade to be a big hero to find some mythical city. Anyway, at the end of the episode, he finally gets this parade. They're all sitting in a car. There's a huge parade thrown into their honor, and Blue and Rebecca does mention, "Blue, I love you." It's just mixed in with all the other voices and stuff. She does say it, but it doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't affect their relationship in the slightest. Um, so this series really has no real progression. I mean, in one episode, she decides she wants to learn to fly the plane. She buys a book on learning how to fly. She believes she does good. Baloo believes she does bad. She does good, kind of, sort of, but Baloo's the better pilot. It gives her pointers. But in a later episode, when she has to come to a rescue in a pinch, she gets in the Sea Dog and she just tears it. And she seems to be a good pilot. So she flies the Sea Duck like twice. I think. Um, the opening theme is pretty good. It's done by the same people that did the Gummy Bears theme. It's pretty silly, but I enjoy it. It's fun to watch. Um, let's see. Sally Struthers, she played Gloria on All in the Family. She's the one that voices Rebecca Cunningham. She does a good job. I believe she's in more episodes than Kid. I mean, Baloo is the only person that's in every single episode. And then I believe Rebecca is in second place. I believe she beats out Kit by like one or two episodes, if I counted correctly, which I'm not sure that did, but whatever. And then Kit's in third place, and everyone else is basically recurring guest characters. Um, so I mean, mostly it's just adventure of the week. I mean, the basic plot or setup or whatever is these people run an air cargo service. So I mean, they have to put up with space pirates. There's a fictional country called Cimbria, which is kind of like making fun of the Soviet Union, basically. They have to deal with them every so often, not in terms of like invasion, but in terms of sometimes they have to go to Zembria, sometimes the Zembrians come to them, and uh, it's basically a tin pot dictatorship and bureaucratic, and it's always snowing there, even though it doesn't seem to be too far from Cape Suzette, which is always tropical. So, so it's weird. That's one really weird thing about this series is Baloo seems to fly like all across the world, like everywhere. And sometimes he goes to far off countries and he comes back. And it seems to take a lot less time than it should. Um in one episode where he had to go back to school, back to elementary school. Uh, he sneaked off while they played a video in history class, which I'm sure that they totally did during that time. Um, anyway, during the course of that video, he goes to make cargo runs to a bunch of different countries and then gets back before a teacher notices he's missing. Like, what? Um, yeah, I don't know. They seem to mention real places every so often, like this, I think they mentioned the Swiss Alps. They also mentioned instead of Bermuda, there's Bermuda. Um, they have some they have a few puns like instead of Amelia Earhart, there's Amelia Bearhart. Um, uh, Overall, it's a fun series, even though the plots are sort of kind of cartoony and things get away. Things they get in danger and they get out of danger way too easily and everything. So, they play fast and loose with laws, why they would get in trouble and when they would not, and why they would not. And it's very much made for kids. It's not too realistic in terms of pretty much anything, especially the flying. The reason that Kid is called Kid Cloud Kicker, well, that's his name, but he basically he has something called an airfoil. It's just basically like this fan or foil type thing that he opens up. He stands on it like it's a sled or something. He holds onto a rope on the back of the sea duck, and basically he cloud surfs. Yeah, Baloo just pulls him along while he's standing on this airfoil behind the plane. He would die so easily. And he's like in elementary school. He's 12. They say he's 12 years old, but they also say he's in elementary school, which 12-year-olds I think should be in middle school, but whatever. Uh Also, any aerial stunts that Blue or anyone else does. I mean, there's 65 episodes, and I feel like all these characters would be killed like 100 times over. They just do the most ludicrous things, and it's almost treated almost like it's no big deal. Um, who else are recurring characters? There's some recurring gangster characters that show up a few times, but not much. The Sembrians show up far more often, but still nowhere near the majority of the episodes. I don't even think the air pirates are in a majority of the episodes. I think pretty much everyone appears in the opening theme, but in terms of if anyone is in the majority of the episodes, that's not a main character, maybe Louis, but yeah, it's mostly just Baloo, Rebecca, and Kit. Um, oh, and they have like a mechanic at Hire for Hire called Wildcat. He was Baloo's mechanic, I believe. He's probably not in the majority of the episodes. I'm not sure, but every so often they do episodes where it's just Baloo and Louie going off on an adventure. Baloo and Wildcat. Or Kit will be absent, but Rebecca will have a big role. Or Rebecca will be absent and Kit will have a big role. Or Kit and Rebecca will both be absent because Baloo's off with Louie or Wildcat doing one thing or another. Um, Rebecca, I believe, is mentioned in like two or three episodes that she doesn't appear in, but I don't think Kit is acknowledged in any episodes that he's not in. Um, to like watch every episode and try to add all of that up. Um, let's see. Rebecca's probably the most sensible character, but even she falls into like get rich quick schemes, and she's way too trusting of obvious crooks and stuff like that. Blue, he's a good pilot. He'll come through for you at the very end, but he is so undependable and so selfish, and he just thinks of himself. He screws things up so badly through his own fault in so many episodes. It's a wonder that he still has a job. Um, so I believe that's all that there is to say about TaleSpin overall that I can think of. It's a fun series. I enjoyed watching it. I had watched Adventures of the Gummy Bears before that. I might do a vlog on that. I believe that's a better series than TaleSpin. But I enjoyed rewatching TaleSpin. Now I've moved to onto Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers, which I also watched back in the day. I watched the first episode earlier today. It's in widescreen for some reason, which is odd. That's odd. I'll have to compare it to see if they stretched it or if they're cropping it. I don't know what they're doing, but I didn't notice it until a few minutes into the episode, and I was like, "Wait a minute, my whole TV screen's filled up." But that's for a different video. Um, yeah, check out Tailspin. If you've got Disney Plus or whatever, just yeah, it's a fun series. It's just don't expect too much out of it. And yeah, that's it. It's 10:43 p.m. and thanks for watching.